Hello, this is the Scholar Gentleman, and I'm here to do my latest book report. I'm getting caught up with them. This is Life, Death, and Whiskey, The Undertaker's Stash by Ralfy Mitchell. Now, if you have even a passing interest in whiskey, Scotch whiskey, um, you probably know who Ralphie is. He has his own channel, probably, I want to say 10, 12 years ago, before the word influencer really became de rigueur to use. Ralphie was an influencer, and it came out of a genuine passion. His whiskey, he's a self-confessed whiskey nerd and a whiskey geek, and he's written 3 books. I mean, I was following his Ralphie channel on YouTube before he wrote his books, and he was written a trilogy of books. And there's a Search for a Whiskey Bothy, Stories from a Whiskey Bar, and of course the last one, Life, Death, and Whiskey. Um, I'll post a link to him talking about these books in the bucket down below. Ralphie's a Scotsman. He's from Glasgow, and these 3 books basically chart his secret origin of how he came to love whiskey, the people he knew in the appreciation of the whiskey, and the pub he would go to. And this last one concentrates on his profession, his 20 plus years profession as an undertaker in the city of Glasgow in the 80s. And since I'm all about all things Scottish, I gratefully bought these books. And this one was particularly evocative. It's probably my favorite out of the 3 because he uses a lot of place names that I'm familiar with because I used to go to Glasgow all the time. When I first started my illustrious air travel profession, he so everything he meant, the places he mentions, like the Clyde, um, the Glasgow Museum of Art, uh, that kind of stuff. All these different places. I think he mentioned Sauchiehall Street once. Um, so yeah, I could picture the city he was moving around in. Basically, it's these little slice of life moments, meeting people probably in their worst extremities. You know, when they're planning a funeral for a loved one, all of the um, all of the defenses that they put up. Sometimes people, when they can't put up defenses, when they're at their most raw. Um, it was a really, really good picture, and he basically painted a picture of like his everyday working life at the co-op. How he basically, it shows how he got the job. He had just been fired from his restaurant position. I think he managed a restaurant in Glasgow, and he was trying to figure out, where am I going to get money for my next to pay my mortgage. So a neighbor referred him to the co-op, and he signed an application, and off he went. And he did I guess he did a ride along with one of the drivers. Just he wanted to see how he could deal with, like, cadavers and whatnot, and it didn't bother Ralph in any particular way. So he just basically took the job and gradually learned the job, and basically became pretty good at it, an expert at it. And he has his head screwed on straight because he refused promotions because he really didn't want a lot of he didn't really do a lot of extra responsibility for a lot more, for not a whole lot more money, that kind of thing. So it basically shows you how he fared during this 20-year plus profession before he decided to, like, cut out and go take care of his mom on the Isle of Man. That's where he resides now. That's where he does his podcast, his videos from. I guess you could call it a podcast. And but aside from that, let me just say that if you like whiskeys, if you like hearing about someone who knows about their whiskeys to a very deep degree, Ralphie's your man. And he also has another channel called Fitter Philosophy. Ralphie is a believer in something called Stoicism, and a lot of that feeds into his Fitter Philosophy. Just basically hints and tips on how to approach life realistic ways on how to approach life. There's no pie in the sky positivity here that you'll find in a lot of other self-help videos, with all of the buzz phrases and everything like that. He's a pretty down to earth, no BS type of guy, and that comes through in his writing and in his channel. And it also helps that he's Scottish and he's a Doctor Who fan, because in his bothy, you'll notice at the very top of that bookshelf behind him, there's like a little black pepper pot looking thing, and that's a Dalek. And a Dalek is the sworn enemy of the Doctor in Doctor Who. And so I've been a little aside here. I've been a Doctor Who fan since 1983. My first Doctor is Peter Davison, but I digress. That's neither here nor there. Maybe one day if I read a Doctor Who book, I'll do a report on that. Lord knows I have enough of them. But anyway, Life, Death, and Whiskey. A lot of you folks on YouTube that I subscribe to know who Ralfy is, and that's in the YTPC and on my BookTube channel. There's a lot of overlap with Ralfy. I remember going to a liquor store once upon a time, and the New Hampshire liquor store, and he knew who Ralfy was, because I think I bought myself a whiskey there, and he even mentioned him unbidden. So if you like whiskey, you might want to follow Ralfy stuff on YouTube. So yeah, I know who Ralfy is, and so yeah. As for whiskey, I know nothing about whiskeys. I know very little about whiskeys, and what I do want to know, I asked folks like Ralfy or Alan over at the Whiskey Friend. I wanted something peaty, so Ralfy told me to go with Lafroig, and I do. And unless you're buying whiskey for the sheer pure enjoyment of it, or for investment purposes, I can't really afford to invest in whiskey in either capacity, because they're kind of pricey, especially now after COVID. But again, I don't know about what to drink for bang for the buck and all that sort of thing. If I had any questions, I would ask him or Alan or Gav's Drams. They know their whiskeys. I don't. But every now and again, I'll pick up a bottle and I'll work my way through it and just enjoy the peatiness of it. It's like pipe smoking, a chance to slow your mind down and just savor the whiskey. And the way Ralfy describes whiskey, it makes me wish I liked whiskey that much, because he's a great cheerleader for it. But as far as whiskey, I have enough obsessions in my life. If I add whiskey to it, then I'll have to get a job that pays better. But anyway, if you have any interest in, it's not a typical whiskey read in that he gives you charts of whiskeys with their ratings or anything like that. It's about how whiskey has informed his life across the 3 books. So if you like that sort of thing, pick up the trilogy. He's a very engaging writer. Like I said, especially if you're into all things Scottish and Scottish culture, and just basically a man's Stoic philosophy of life. All of it gets featured pretty prominently in all 3 books, but especially this one, because let's face it, when you're at the end of life, that's when you're pondering that's when you do a lot of meditating. So thank you very much. Enjoy your reading, and we'll speak to you soon.